When you look up gut microbiome on Google, 86,100,000 results pop up. There's no denying that the mainstream has absolutely devoured the concept of an entire microenvironment right in our bellies, with wide-ranging functions of metabolic activities to mental health. And past that, a microenvironment that we actually have the ability to modify in order to improve our health. But just what exactly do we know about the gut microbiome at this stage of research? And as multiple actors clamor to be center stage, how do we distinguish between good faith actors trying to better wellness within the population or greedy stakeholders who see an opportunity to generate a profit? Welcome to BS, a podcast where we take an in-depth look at different scientific and social phenomena and innovations, whilst tying them back to broader societal perspectives and why you should care. We're so happy you're here, and enjoy the episode. Hi, I'm Ileana.
And hi, I'm Gold. And welcome to
BS.
So today for our inaugural episode, we're going to be talking about the gut microbiome. As you've probably already heard from our intro, this seems to be a very hot topic on the streets. There's definitely been more developments in our scientific understanding of the gut microbiome, and I think it's caught just the general public's eyes for numerous reasons: health concerns, wanting to better your body, the trends regarding groceries. But in terms of the information that we do know, there's still like a gap in the research, and we are just here to figure out, like, is everything that we're hearing about the gut microbiome and what's out there really validated?
For sure. Because in 2015, an internet search of gut microbiome and gut microbiota generated between 1 and 2.2 million results. As we stated, that figure is now up to 86,100,000 results. So clearly it's an incredibly popular topic at the moment. And we can also see it in the fact that the food industry is currently churning out food and supplements that are constantly being labeled as probiotic or fermented foods. And they are being advertised everywhere. It seems like everybody has a miracle product that is going to, in some way, help to better your gut microbiome. But before we even get into those products, let's actually start with just general history and definitions of what the gut microbiome even is. So, a Russian scientist named Eli Mechnikov studied rural Bulgarians in the early 1900s, and he hypothesized that the fermented milk products they consume were actually leading to better overall health for them. And he's actually the first scientist credited with proposing modifications to your gut microbiome could actually improve your overall health. And he won a Nobel Prize for this in 1908. This field rapidly expanded after, with Scottish biologist Sir Alexander Fleming discovering penicillin in 1928, which led to a shift from trying to utilize bacteria to fight off infection to instead looking at soil fungi derivatives being used to kill off bacteria. This led to a golden age of antibiotic discovery that lasted from around 1940 to 1960, where soil-derived actinomycetes were utilized, but as they continued to pioneer through that field, it yielded less significant results, which ended up having scientists turn to synthetic compounds instead. These efforts also weren't very widely successful, and this was due to a deceleration of antibiotic discovery, and that also ended up leading to the spread of more resistant bacteria. However, the spotlight is now back on bacteria as a means to improve gut health, strengthen immunity, and help develop better future treatments. There's even something called the Human Microbiome Project, which uses high throughput omics analysis to identify and study the microbiome in human health. In 2015, they had over 1,300 reference strains that they were currently using. However, now in 2024, with all their research and time and investment that has gone into it, I'm sure they've added thousands of reference strains to that.
So I just wanted to give y'all like a bit of a general overview of the human gut microbiome. And honestly, it starts developing while you are still in utero. The human intestinal tract, the microbiome itself contains a diversity of microbes. It has bacteria, it has archaea, fungus, viruses, and they're all distributed throughout the GI tract, especially within your colon. And it tends to have like a symbiotic and very like mutualistic relationship with the host, which is you. And, you know, a typical healthy person should have trillions of microbes around their body, especially in their gut. So there's multiple factors that contribute to your gut microbiome. So no two people have the same one. The environment, your genetics, and the diet that you had all contribute to the microbiome that you will have. And there was even a study in 2014 that was showing microbial community types across the human body. And it showed that a person's gender, their education level, and even whether or not they were breastfed or were a vaginal birth or a C-section baby, all impact whether or not their microbiome would have certain things and how diverse it would be. So microorganisms are already present in the placenta, amniotic fluid, and umbilical cord, which the fetus can swallow to start building its gut microbiome. And the microbiome of a newborn like closely resembles the microbiome of the things that they came in contact with before birth. So what the mother is eating and the things that she comes in contact with will in turn also impact the baby, and so will her environment, her stress levels. They will all have a impact on the child. So at around the age of like 2.5 or 3, children start developing a gut microbiome that is more similar to an adult as their composition starts maturing. And whether or not the child was breastfed after birth can impact that. So breastfeeding has certain nutrients that increase the amount of bacteria within breastfed infants that we have currently not been able to replicate with formula. So that also has an impact with their gut microbiome. And in terms of long-term changes in your gut microbiome, right now, studies have shown that even at elderly age, you should still be able to have a very functioning and robust gut microbiome. However, the composition of it may change a bit, but it should still be quite diverse. However, when they do research centenarians and people who are over 100, they do have a decreased diversity in their gut microbiome in comparison to an average younger healthy adult.
Past that, your GI tract and your gut microbiota are also very sensitive to stress and different stress mediators. So, for example, one form of physiological stress is exercise. We all love to hit the gym. We all love to get those gains. And Lord knows we've all had to chug down a protein smoothie before. However, if you actually do too much exercise, that can actually have a very negative impact on your gut microbiome. It's been shown that high-intensity exercise, such as long-distance running, can lead to different varieties of GI distress. However, regular exercise and regular athletic levels are perfectly fine. For example, one study showed that professional rugby players actually had significantly higher gut microbial diversity due to increased exercise and different dietary protein intakes as compared to a control group that was of the same size/weight and then also age/gender distribution. Something surprising was that the athletes also had improved metabolic markers and lower inflammatory markers, demonstrating that their lifestyle was also having a very good impact in other areas. And it also proved that both diet and exercise positively correlate with greater gut microbiotic diversity. So yes, regular exercise is great, but prolonged and excessive exercise can actually negatively affect your intestinal function and could lead you more susceptible to injury and infection in the long run. Probiotic supplements have been used in athletes to try to help improve gut health and decrease symptoms of nausea, cramping, bloating, and diarrhea, as well as to improve immunity. However, research into both prebiotic and probiotic supplements are still ongoing, and it's really important to continue to analyze the facts as we go into a new area of research. But more on that later. Another example of physiological stress that can impact somebody is a very critical illness. It's been shown that when you're sick, the gut will actually promote infection and dysfunctional metabolic activities. So if you are already sick, your gut microbiome will actually somehow work to make you sicker. Also, psychological stress can also serve as something that can harm your gut microbiome. It's been shown that stressors that start from an early time in life, such as psychological, sexual, or physical abuse, can actually be very important contributors to the development of functional GI disorders. So it's even some of the things that we don't necessarily usually associate with our gut and our stomach health can be indirectly tied to it, even if we don't know about it. And finally, antibiotics can also lead to some changes in division in your gut microbiota. Because antibiotics are designed to be very broad spectrum, they want to try to kill off as many bad bacteria as possible. That means they also, unfortunately, kill off some of the good bacteria. And so when you take antibiotics, they can kill some of your gut bacteria and lead to decreased diversity in your gut microbiome. Some will return to pretreatment levels, but some could be lost indefinitely, which demonstrates the fact that you shouldn't overly rely on or use antibiotics because of those kind of other factors that come into it. And antibiotics can also promote antibiotic resistant strains, as many of you know, and that can also have a long-term impact on your gut microenvironment.
As you probably guessed, the food you eat and the diet you maintain is one of the main deciders of how your gut microbiome will be. And there's been many varied diets, but it's shown that a diet that is very diverse in the amount of vegetables and legumes that it has will increase your gut microbiome diversity, even if you are in adulthood. So things like consuming dietary fiber from fruits or vegetables, other plants, and having a lot of diversity in your diet will lead to a healthier and definitely a more diverse gut microbiome. So it's very linear in that sense. And there was a 2013 study that showed significant effects across all age groups in terms of their diet and their resulting gut microbiome. So the study looked at people living in the United States in metropolitan areas, as well as people in the Amazons of Venezuela and in rural Malawi. And they took fecal microbiota of all these individuals to see who had the most and the least bacterial diversity. As I'm sure you guys can guess, the U.S. population had the least bacterial diversity, which can be attributed to the diet that is often held in the U.S. The U.S. diet tends to be rich in protein, while the Malawian and Amerindian diet is rich in corn, cassava, and other legumes and vegetables, and just is overall more diverse, which led them to having a more diverse gut microbiome. Obviously, other factors could be in play, not just your diet. Like we said, in the environment that you're in also impacts your gut microbiome. So how often, again, people are using antibiotics, and not just antibiotics that are taken in terms of prescription medication, but also how much people are using antibiotic soaps, how many times people are using hand sanitizer, and the sterileness of the environment that you're in is also going to have a very large impact on your gut microbiome.
And finally, going off of Gold's previous point, as an American, I know a lot about the SAD diet, which is basically the standard American diet, which is basically a nutritionist's worst nightmare. We all know that we're probably not getting the necessary amount of fruits, vegetables, and diverse fiber sources as we should be, but research is taking it one step further in terms of clocking us and letting us know that actually we might be at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of gut microbiome diversity. So, rural indigenous populations harbor substantial biodiversity with certain microbial taxa that actually haven't even been recorded in industrial societies. And residency in the US actually increases the risk of losing your gut microbial diversity and even increases the risk of obesity and other chronic diseases for immigrants that come over. So, there was actually a study done on Karen immigrants who lived in Minnesota, and also on the Hmong group from China who reside in Southeast Asia. And they looked at people who had either were just about to migrate to the US or had migrated around 2 months ago, and then for 6 months collected fecal specimens from them in order to kind of analyze their gut microbiome. And their key findings were basically that migration from a non-Western country to the United States is associated with an almost immediate loss of your gut microbiome diversity. They performed the amplicon-based sequencing on the 16S rRNA gene on over 550 stool samples on the Hmong and Karen immigrants. And they found that U.S. immigrants tend to lose enzymes associated with plant fiber degradation very, very quickly, and that their microbiome actually becomes westernized within even as early as 9 months after they immigrate. Obviously, there are other limitations to this, such as diet, stress, exercise, water, especially looking at immigrant populations who might have less time and less disposable income to be reallocated to their health. But it definitely is very interesting the fact that coming to the United States and eating what's currently on our plates will actually put you more at risk for problems with your gut microbiome.
So, just to give y'all some background, the 16S rRNA gene is found in bacteria and archaea, so in prokaryotic cells. So, in terms of the study's finding, that can also like have an impact on the way that you interpret that data. But yeah, like this was definitely a shock to me. Like, as an immigrant myself, like I always thought if I just kept up with the diet that I have had most of my life, or if I was eating majority Nigerian food, that I would be kind of fine. But even again, within the year of coming to the US, like people who immigrated in their adulthood are already losing like massive amounts of their microbiota diversity. And obviously, it's not just about moving to the US, like, but rather the things that come with that. So it could be stress factors. You know, most immigrants are not just, you know, cruising and living some kind of like life of luxury. You know, adjusting to a new area is just stressful within itself, possibly learning a new language, learning new customs, and then also, you know, even if you do try to recreate the diet that you had back home, obviously the expense of these things as well as their general availability is going to be different within the States. I know that I've definitely experienced that when trying to keep up with a more non-Western diet. So yeah, there's multiple factors leading to this, but it's just concerning all around that that is the area that we're moving to. However, you know, I try to keep optimism about these things. I would love to see a study done, or maybe we may make a podcast later on about these people, you know, changing their diets and seeing and comparing how their diets were before they immigrated to how they are now. And on top of that, seeing if they are able to diversify their diet, again, if it will lead to them regaining some of the microbiota that they had beforehand. So now we just want to get into what this means for us as a society. As you can see, like the gut microbiome is a very important factor in our body, and is some cause for concern in the way we eat in the United States. And it becomes especially concerning when we see that the rates of colorectal cancer are definitely on the rise in young people in the United States. So it makes us worry about how our diet and how our gut microbiome may be contributing to that. However, although people's worries are incredibly valid, I do think that the sudden interest in the topic and the developments in the science has led to a lot of people trying to capitalize off of that, and has definitely caused a lot of misinformation to spread about the gut microbiome.
For sure.
So this one study was a cross-sectional study looking at the UK version of YouTube, where they examined 319 videos based on the searches microbiome, gut microbiome, and microbiome health. And they took the 200 most viewed videos and analyzed things about them. For one, 78.7% were uploaded between 2019 and 2022, which is a very massive amount, which seems good, but it makes me wary, because it makes me worry about the amount of professional and correct advice being put out versus the people who are jumping on something that they know people want to view. And 73.4% of those videos were produced in North America. And, there's always going to be an issue with weird populations, which is like usually Western educated population demographics having the space on the internet to be the main voice of reason. And as we can see, it's not like the US and North America are doing the greatest at even keeping up the diversity of that gut microbiome. So it's also very interesting how, like always, somehow the North America is at the center of the conversation. So what they found is that videos by non-educational creators had the highest total and had a slightly more preferred viewership, but it seemed that regardless of if you were professional on the subject or not, it did not impact whether or not somebody wanted to watch your video, which is actually more of an issue than it sounds, because when it comes to critically analyzing the information that we're coming in contact with, the person who is delivering that information and the facts that they have to back it up can make all of the difference for whether it is worth anything or not. And YouTube has in the past implemented COVID-19 medical misinformation policies, and that ended in the removal of over 130,000 videos because of how bad and detrimental the misinformation regarding COVID was. However, they have not extended that to other medical misinformation. So it's kind of like an open playing field in terms of whoever wants to say whatever they want in terms of the gut microbiome and other health related things. And it's very concerning that this amount of misinformation is seeming to be a part of our everyday lives and encounters, because it just has parallels with the heart healthy advertising. Everybody on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter swears they know the next kombucha and the next prebiotic, probiotic that can fix all of your concerns. And it's just unfortunate, because I feel like they're playing on people's fears and insecurities about, again, our rising rates of colorectal cancer and, just coming out and still being in a pandemic. You can see the uptick in the advertising of gut healthy the way you did for heart healthy when heart disease was a large concern in the United States.
past that, we're also seeing different scandals kind of arise as we realize that people are doing anything in order to pronounce themselves in the gut microbiome space. So let's call some of y'all's favorite drink manufacturers to the stand. Poppi, I am talking about you. So the Poppi prebiotic soda brand has recently faced a class action lawsuit over their quote unquote gut health claims. So they promote themselves by saying be gut happy and be gut healthy, and that by drinking their sodas that you are gaining access to the benefits of prebiotics. However, within the lawsuit, what they're kind of doing the math on is that a consumer would actually have to drink around 4 cans a day for 21 days straight for the possibility of even gaining marginal health improvements. The lawsuit also claims that the sugar content to reach these amounts of drinks would offset any health benefits that you would actually get, which makes a lot of logical sense because Poppi actually has 5 grams of sugar per soda can, which is a lie if they were actually drinking it at the rates they would need in order to see any prebiotic health improvements. Also, there's no real general consensus on how much prebiotics are actually helpful in this phase. I definitely feel like the prebiotic, probiotic brands are taking what is a very niche, very small section of current available literature and definitely hyper-inflating it in order to reach out to an audience that, like we've already said, is incredibly susceptible to false advertising, especially when it comes to something as important and as sacred to us as our health. Not only that, but after doing some research into like the people who drink Poppi, they did not care. They were kind of just, a lot of them admittedly were stating that they were drinking Poppi more as an alternative to traditional soda brands like Coca-Cola, which has 10 grams of sugar, and Dr. Pepper, which has a whopping 38 grams of sugar. So I definitely can feel the idea of if you're trying to get yourself off of more harmful, high fructose corn syrup drinks, that this could be a better alternative. But my biggest issue is the blatant false advertising that is present. Basically coming and telling you that they're going to offer you health benefits that they realistically cannot prove that they're going to give to you, and actually maybe doing more harm with the amount of sugar that they'll be offering to you instead. I don't know. It's giving Poppi wants a quick buck, not to help your gut.
And honestly, Poppi has many cousins in the drink aisle that are all prebiotic, gut healthy, probably a neon or pastel color, and a very friendly millennial font that will make you pick up their version of water with 5 grams of sugar. In the nicest way possible. A lot of these brands, as far as the literature goes, are selling snake oil. Okay, like but right now, the literature is inconclusive for whether or not prebiotics and probiotics, even in pill forms, are providing any kind of benefit. And I think the reason why the medical community and the scientific community kind of just leaves them alone is because there haven't been showing any kind of substantial harm. So it's kind of like, if you want to take your placebo pill, be my guest, but I can't like ensure you that it'll actually do anything for you. And I'm not here to say that, again, things in your diet cannot help your gut microbiome diversity, as we've already previously said. Like, that's one of the main things. However, these like trendy, came out within the last 15 years, popped out of nowhere companies that are selling you gummies and pills and drinks and honestly, who knows what else, like don't really have the backing for the claims that they are making. And I do believe that this Poppi scandal and lawsuit will be one of many of its kind.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it's really sad to say, but brands are honestly just capitalizing off of people's desire to be healthy, especially after you look at the context of the time period we're currently residing in. Okay, we're coming off the tails of a global pandemic that's really becoming endemic, that has ravaged communities worldwide and led to poorer health outcomes for many. Plus, we also have the context that multiple medical scandals throughout history have led to a big distrust of institutions, especially for marginalized communities like Black people or lower income people. And so a lot of people do kind of want to take their health into their own individual hands and try to branch out from the quote unquote professionals and scientists in order to see what's best for them. However, as much as these things are true and as much as the scientific and medical community has a lot of reparations and a lot of apologizing to do for their missteps, it shouldn't also take away from the many scientists who have actually done a lot of the work and really built up our scientific reservoirs in a way that has led to the groundbreaking advancements that even allow us to live the quality of life and length of life that we even can now.
And honestly, I hate to say it, but it's past mistrust when it comes to the medical community. The way, at least in the United States, that our health insurance is set up, like it is always at the scene of the crime when it comes to public hysteria around what's going wrong next. For example, colorectal cancer rates have been increasing for over 10 years at this point, yet they have not lowered the age for most insurance companies for when they will cover you getting a colonoscopy, and it seems to be popping up more in young people. So these things are not something that you can just fund with your own money very easily, okay? This is a procedure that is thousands of dollars. So of course people are looking elsewhere because they're afraid, they're concerned for themselves, their health, their loved ones, and they don't want to be sitting ducks waiting for an insurance company to let them know, maybe I'll cover something if you're really dying. For cancer is always going to be a very big and scary topic for people. So it definitely is not doing the scientists any favors that we're not offering accessible public health.
For context too, colon cancer is the fourth leading cancer in the U.S. for men and women, and it's also the fourth leading cancer-related death cause, with an average of 64% in terms of a 5-year survival rate. So the statistics are pretty grim, and it is actually becoming more and more of a rising public health threat. So just food for thought.
Listen, colon cancer the numbers are scary. 1 in 23 men in the US, 1 in 25 women. You can sit in a classroom and one of you, on average, is gonna get colon cancer, not even considering all the other things that's trying to come to you in your 40s. It's gonna be worse than the cracking knees, child.
Oh Lord, when I tell you, imagine coming home, you gotta clean, you gotta cook, your kids are running around, and now your gut is also acting up. God save me.
Living in this country will give you 17 comorbidities, just by being here.
Literally, sometimes you don't even have to do anything out of the ordinary or risky, which is why I hate when companies, in terms of taking on new patients with insurance who might already have pre-existing conditions, sometimes the pre-existing condition is just being American.
And listen, I'm not even trying to be too political, but y'all can thank Obamacare for y'all having all of that and still leaving with any kind of health care, because they was ready to pack y'all up immediately, honestly. So think about that before y'all make too many choice comments on the Affordable Care Act. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of reasons that are driving people to, again, fall for these companies' marketing tactics. But it just really sucks how their fear is just being monetized. Okay, at the end of the day, social media is social media. People are gonna jump on whatever trending topic it is. Okay, listen, they'll act like they're quantum physics experts if enough people were willing to search the topic up.
Mind you, that Bachelor's of Science is BS. You got it? You guys get the joke? You guys get the joke.
Listen, if nobody else laughs at Ileana's jokes, I will. Okay. The whole time, Bachelor's of Science is being very generous for some of the people who come up and speak on here. half of the time they're getting their degree on madeupmonkeyshit.com.
No,
and
literally.
They don't actually know a single thing they're talking about.
No, for sure.
And also, I just feel like our institutions, both social media conglomerates and the health institution, have to do a better job of protecting its customers and its clients. Like, I feel like social media companies have been doing a poor job in monitoring and taking down misinformation. And listen, I understand that there needs to be a balance between monitoring misinformation and censorship. However, if it's showing to have very like negative impacts on your viewer population, I definitely think that's something that they should take into account and at least flag these videos for, hey, this is objectively incorrect. So, like,
also on the social media point, I even like to add how there's definitely this like very nasty, very subtle level of classism that's creeping in, and kind of this concept of food as a luxury, which we will be doing in a later episode, so stay tuned. But you can almost see people trying to fight to gain access to even just the privilege of healthy food, and like the idea of them trying to use it to extend their lifespan. Like, they're seeing their favorite celebrities and influencers. They see the way they look. They see how long they live. They see the ways they age and the foods that they eat. And they think that if they try to recreate as much of that as possible, that they might be able to gain access to that sort of lifestyle. But what they don't completely grasp is that these celebrities, influencers, okay, maybe they have nutritionists, they have diet plans, they have personal trainers, and they have disposable income that you could only dream of, okay? And they have those nutritionists and diet plans and personal trainers for their pet Shih Tzu too, okay? Like, they have so much money and so much access to so many things that they probably are getting the best quality of healthcare that's out there. They probably are going to be able to afford the most cutting edge, most advanced technology in this field and in this space. So it's just really kind of sad too that you almost see this level of like the average American cannot afford a colonoscopy, cannot afford these procedures, cannot afford to see their PCP all the time, cannot afford necessarily to even keep up with their oral microbiota. Because that's another thing. Our gut microbiome is just a section of the microbiota that exists all over the human being. We have them in our vagina. We have them in our mouth. We have them on our skin. We have them everywhere. And people don't even fully understand the levels to this that there are. And so watching people try to play around or mess around with their health when they're not fully informed and don't have the full picture, because these companies and these public officials and people, like, they're not giving you the full picture necessary to actually understand what's going on.
And honestly, like, that's why it's so important that you have an eyebrow raised for every source that you come across. Okay, like, I know, again, there is valid reasons to have distrust in the medical system. It seems like every day they give us another one. However, I don't want people's pessimism about our medical system to lead them to finding any contrarian online who will tell you guys what you want to hear and reaffirm whatever biases that you have, because it's just poor behavior to just blindly believe anyone. And again, this is including the like health system, our researchers. Like, they should be backing up their work. They should be proving like to us that this makes any kind of sense and the science behind that. But again, don't lower your standards when it comes to these random people on the internet. If anything, you need to be raising them, because you have no tangible information that shows that these people are giving you any information that is even worth anything, if it's even true. Like, and I think that is like an important thing to keep in mind. Like, do not have that enemy of my enemy is my friend mindset. Like, try to be as open-minded as you can and critical of the information and where they're pulling this information from and how they're backing it up. And I mean, influencers are the perfect example of this. Like, I think people see somebody and maybe they are traditionally beautiful, like they fit that Eurocentric beauty standard, or again, like they have other things about their lifestyle and their look and the way they portray themselves and even the way they portray their health that you may want. But again, and I don't know how many times I can say this, they could just get up there and lie. Like there's literally nobody stopping them. Like I won't name names, but there's literally a man who was sitting there and telling people that if you just eat an all carnivore diet, you can be just as muscular and just as lean as him. Whole time it was steroids
Not
on
natty.
steroids on steroids
Not
on
natty.
steroids.
Yeah, tearing apart that steak in the woods did nothing for him, and will do nothing for you, my boys.
I'm trying to say, like, don't confuse trend for Poppi now. Like, don't confuse trend for the raw ground beef that you saw him eat that probably gave him things he don't even want in his microbiome.
I was about to say, maybe that is not the good bacteria that we're looking for. And this is not even to take away necessarily from historical traditions and indigenous practices. For example, like I was telling Gold earlier, I'm currently in a class where our research project is literally natural compounds and potentially how they can help to fight off the progression of colorectal cancer. But the thing about these natural compounds is they've actually been studied. Scientists are actually taking a look at their metabolic activities, the ways their oral bioactivity, how do they actually travel through the bloodstream, and trying to actually analyze and study their effects and apply them to drug making in a way that will actually be useful for future populations. So we're not saying that traditional medicine is the only way or that everything that you hear from a doctor has to be the end all be all. Everybody deserves to have a spot at the table when it comes to advocating for better health for our population as a whole. But it's important to also prove that you can actually rise to the challenge, whether it's evidence, whether it's some sort of credibility. Like, you need to actually demonstrate, and you have to be looking for people who can demonstrate that they have professionality and credibility. So I think major point that me and Gold want to leave you guys with is that, yes, the gut microbiome is fascinating. It's cool. It's wonderful. It has so many wide-ranging functions that we're still even studying. And it's really nice to know that we actually do have some sort of impact that we can make on the diversity of our gut microbiome. But at the same time, it's important to be cautious. It's important to really analyze the facts that we do know and understand. And it's important to realize that just because somebody tells you something doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it for your own benefit.
To conclude, gut microbiome, the misinformation regarding that, and if it's fact or fiction, like many things, it depends. You know, the gut microbiome is incredibly important for our health. It can be impacted by many factors such as stress, diet, environment, even your experience in the womb. However, this is a not novel topic, but a topic that still has a lot of science and research to be done on. And sometimes the answer really is just we're not sure. And I think people should be getting more habituated to being okay with that. And, you know, I just call on everybody, every individual, the traditional healthcare field, the social media companies, and those who are spreading misinformation to be active in your pursuit of your own health and public health. You know, for these social media companies, I really do think that we could see a lot of public benefit from them just cracking down on the misinformation that's being spread on their platforms. And, you know, in terms of the healthcare system, sometimes all I got to do is beg when it comes to y'all, especially in the United States, that there's more accessibility to diagnostic things regarding colorectal cancer and just a lot of catching things before they get too bad and actually giving people access to the healthcare that they need. And, you know, for you as a listener, for you as just a person who's concerned about their own health, their family's health, the people around them's health, I just leave you with: be critical of all the information you come across, and be active in your pursuits of a like multitude of different sources. However, like you like be understanding in terms of how valid a source is, and if there's actual science and credibility to back up the things you hear.
For sure. So, we're so happy that you guys were with us and listened to us talk about the gut microbiome, fact or fiction, today. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay tuned for our next couple of episodes, and please subscribe to BS so that you can listen to us sort through more scientific innovations and more impacts on society. We'll see y'all later. Bye.
So guys, all of the articles that we are talking about will be in the required reading in the description box. So if you want to tune in there and follow along with us or get a more in-depth view of the things that we're talking about, that's where it'll be.